For over a century, Ararat asylum swallowed the forgotten. Criminals, outcasts, and the misunderstood. 13,000 souls are lost behind these walls. Some spirits have moved on, others still waiting. Most people visit this place for a thrill, a ghost tour, a story to tell. But spirits don't care about tourists. They find the ones who can hear them. And on this night, they found me and my friend. I don't come to places like this for ghost stories. I come because spirits find me, and sometimes they need help to move on. Well, okay, I guess this is a ghost story now in the telling, but what happened that night was a profound experience with something that neither of us could explain. Stay with me, because what we saw and who we met will change the way you think about ghosts. Now, a while ago, a fellow shaman and I headed out to the wilds of Western Victoria. That's the state where I live in here in Australia. We stopped overnight in a town called Ararat. During the gold rush of the mid-1800s, Ararat was a booming metropolis. But the interesting thing for the two of us was that this is the home of a now decommissioned and haunted mental asylum. So I thought, we should definitely check that out. There are organized ghost tours on Saturday nights, but we were here on a Sunday night. So after dinner, I said to my friend, let's head to the asylum. Now my friend suggested that we should Google it, find out where it is. And I said, look, if two experienced shaman can't feel their way to a haunted mental assignment, then we both need to surrender our shaman cards. Rising to the challenge, we jumped in the car. We drove east from the restaurant, tuned in, and started to follow our spiritual GPS. Yep, we found it. Drove right there. We arrived to a big estate comprising over 50 buildings that covers most of a large hill. It was a dark night and there were no streetlights out here. We had to rely on the headlights of our car to make out the grounds and various buildings. The Ararat Asylum, also called Aradale, sits right on the very top of the hill. We drove as far as we could to the highest part of the facility, looming out in front of us. Well, not wanting to be discovered, we stopped the car under a large gum tree and walked down a dirt road along some deserted buildings. There was definitely lots of spirit energy and kind of an eerie feeling. In the silence of the night, we could only hear our footsteps on the gravel road. There were ghosts here. This place, definitely haunted. My friend and I are both experienced with ghost busting, sight clearing, and helping spirits to move on. Now here's some background about the asylum. I warn you, it is not good. This place was once known as the Ararat Lunatic Asylum. It was opened in 1865 at the height of the gold rush. It was commissioned to accommodate the growing number of lunatics in the colony of Victoria. And it operated until 1993 with a mandate to serve as the asylum for the psychiatric and intellectually handicapped patients. For part of its history, it was used to relieve the prison system of those thought to be the most criminally insane and irreparably evil. However, it also became a place for individuals suffering from mental illnesses, postnatal depression, and conditions such as epilepsy, autism, or Down syndrome. At its peak, it housed around 1,000 patients. It wasn't closed as an asylum until 1998. By the time it closed, it had seen 13,000 deaths in its 130-year history. Patients, prisoners, staff, all included. Today, the buildings host day tours and the ever-popular nighttime ghost tour. After our visit, my friend and I read that tourists sometimes faint, and some feel the onset of nausea or pain in certain rooms. Others report putrid smells, and they hear crying and repetitive banging. Now, as I said, I do lots of work with ghosts and trapped spirits, so I wasn't scared, just on alert. Part of the work I do as a shaman is called psychopomp, and that's helping trapped spirits transition out of this dimension. I can always see and feel spirits if I tune in, and often spirits approach me because, well, somehow they know that I can help them to move on. As my friend and I made our way cautiously along this empty road, we both felt strong energy around a particular doorway. We paused in front of this derelict door, relaxed and tuned in. And sure enough, a spirit materialized just in front of the door. In our time, there are tile steps up to the door, but in her time, the steps and the landing are both wooden. She came down the steps toward us and introduced herself as Dolores. Well, we introduced ourselves. She looked to be in her 50s, maybe late 40s. She had shoulder-length hair, and she was wearing a floral print dress with a matching belt. Her energy was very calm and actually quite friendly. She seemed content as a ghost and seemed eager to have a conversation. She explained to us that she was first a resident of this asylum in 1968. After a year's treatment, she was discharged back into society. This caused her a lot of stress. She was not happy or functioning very well and was a burden to her family. In 1974, her family brought her back here. Well, my friend and I asked if it was a scary place to live, and she said, no, it was very safe. She said, I felt really safe here. She explained that back in society, she didn't feel safe, but here she felt safe and protected. Soon after returning in 1974, she took a job here at the asylum. When I was doing research for this episode, I came across some photos of events at Aradale, and I think I found her. She worked here until her death. I don't remember what she said her job was, but this was where she felt safe and secure. I didn't feel that she had any interest or desire to leave. We asked her where the criminally insane were held, and she said, well, we know that there are criminals here, but we don't interact with them. They're way over in another part of the facility. We don't have anything to do with them. We never see them. So she was talking about J Ward. Way back in 1887, J Ward became an annex to the asylum to house the criminally insane in a more secure facility. So there was obviously a separation between the mental patients and the criminally insane patients. And Dolores confirmed this. Now, my shaman friend is also a psychologist and asked about the psychiatric care. She asked Dolores if the treatments were cruel or unusual. Dolores said no. She said they were doing some experiments to try and help us control our emotions and our behaviors. As she said this, she leaned back toward the open door. I could see a spirit lingering just inside. A man came forward into the doorway. He was a chubby fellow, probably about the same age as Dolores. He had very close cropped hair, and he was wearing a t-shirt, kind of a V-neck sort of t-shirt, with food stains on his chest and dirty trousers, and he had slippers on his feet. Referencing this fellow, Dolores explained that one of the things that they were trying was deep brain stimulation to control various moods and behaviors. I'm pretty sure that this is the procedure that was happening for this guy. They had put thin metal rods in his skull at various points. These rods were put through the skull to a particular depth in the brain. The rods were connected to an electrical current in order to stimulate sections of the brain, hopefully to curb aberrant behaviors. I guess it was kind of like a focused electroconvulsive therapy. I'm remembering that he was very docile, kind of like when you see in the movies when someone's had a lobotomy. He didn't speak or say anything. He just stood in the doorway. I believe he was a close friend of Dolores's. Well, again, there was no feeling of unrest or agitation. These two ghosts seemed quite content in their dimension and seemed familiar with people in our dimension. Dolores explained that she died at the facility, which is why she was present for us. And she again reiterated that she was very happy. Well, I asked both of the spirits if they wanted to leave. They looked a bit surprised, and Dolores said, well, no, where would we go? I explained that in this life, We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. I also explained to them that after their particular deaths, for various reasons, their spirits have remained in this dimension, but that they could move into the light and continue their spiritual journey if they wanted to. Well, Dolores and the man looked at each other, but said nothing. Not every ghost wishes to depart. So, my friend continued her inquiry about the treatments. Dolores said, all the treatments happened in the big house. That was the place with the examination rooms, the clinic rooms, and the visiting doctor's residences. She said, we didn't live in the big house. This is where we lived. You should go ask at the big house. Well, we thanked her, and she walked back up the steps into her unit. My friend and I walked back to our car and decided to risk driving up the road closer to what we assumed was the main facility. We stopped in front of a big double chain link gate with barbed wire at the top. Our headlights revealed lots of signs. Warning, no unauthorized entry. Warning, canine dogs. And 2 signs for tours. Day tours on Wednesday and Sunday, and a sign directing people for the ghost tour to meet at the Heath Street entrance. We thought about trying to find the Heath Street entrance, but Spirit had guided us to this back entrance. So this is where we felt we should be. We got out of the car, switched off the headlights, and walked up to the gate. With the headlights off, we could barely make out buildings beyond this gate. My friend commented, it's too dark to really see anything. And I kid you not, at the same time she said this, some kind of light switched on and illuminated a huge white building at the end of the drive. My friend and I looked around to try and see where this light was coming from. Was it some passing car's headlights, a police searchlight? But no, there was no car, and the light didn't move like headlights or a searchlight would. But there it was, the big house, boom, straight on, fully illuminated. Then something even stranger happened. That light went out and another light came on. It was kind of like a movie projector being turned on, shining an image onto the back of the big house. It was illuminating this whole backside of the house, but with a black cage pattern that kept scrolling, like it was some kind of a film loop. The house was perfectly lit. Now, just to be clear, this is happening in our time. It isn't something we're seeing in the spirit dimension. It was happening in our 3D reality. From somewhere, lights went on illuminating this house. Someone must have turned on these lights. And then we thought, well, I wonder if there was security. Or we hadn't moved. We hadn't done anything that could trigger a motion sensor or anything. So we just stood there, frozen to the spot, watching this strange pattern scroll across the building. We couldn't see anyone. We didn't hear anybody. There were no dogs, no sounds of anybody, security, nothing. And just as we were thinking, wow, this is pretty weird, the scrolling image stopped and the lights went off. I think this illumination spectacle lasted about 2 minutes in total. As soon as the lights went out and we were once again alone in front of this gate in the darkness, another spirit appeared, walking toward us. She was coming down the road from the big house. She was sort of turn of the century, 1890s, early 1900s. She wore a dark dress with those big puffy sleeves and a white apron on top of that. She had lots of keys hanging from the belt at her waist. She stopped about 2 meters in front of us. There's no gate or fence in her time. She looked very sad. It wasn't a good feeling. She wasn't content like Dolores was. She stood there for a moment and then asked if we could help her transition, to move on from this dimension. So she just needed a little psychopomp work. Happy to do that. So we said, yeah, we can help you. We can open up a portal above you so that you can transition out of here. But she was reluctant. She stepped back and she said, I need to be forgiven for the deeds that I have done. That's why I'm here. I can't leave. I'm stuck here for my crime. So she explained her story of guilt. Ready? She had murdered someone here at the asylum, and upon her death saw the white light, but feared the judgment of the afterlife, so she turned away. In a gentle and reassuring voice, my friend asked the nurse to tell us what had happened. The spirit explained that she was an assistant to one of the doctors. She clarified that she wasn't just a nurse. She was a research assistant or some kind of help to one particular doctor. This doctor came here from time to time from another asylum in Melbourne to conduct behavioral control research. The spirit told us that the doctor was very aggressive and very cruel. She said that he was extremely arrogant and he was doing a very invasive and brutal surgical procedure on patients. She knew that his theories and what he was doing to the patients was never going to work. She explained that he was harming the patients. All of the patients receiving his treatment died, but he wouldn't stop. She said, I knew that his research was wrong, that it was never going to work, but he just kept killing patients. He was mad. His ego was out of control. He had a big reputation, and he would show up and force us to administer his procedures, and the administration just let him. She felt that there was no way to stop him from this relentless killing, so she figured it was up to her to stop him. Now, at this time, when there were contaminated bed linens or contaminated clothing that might carry disease, they would put the contaminated linens in a particular laundry cart that would be sent to the incinerators. The asylum had several giant incinerators. So one particular Friday afternoon, as the doctor was preparing to experiment on another inmate, she killed him. She wrapped his body in bedding and dumped him in the special contaminated linen laundry cart and wheeled it down to the incinerators. She handed the cart over to the incinerator attendant and waited to see if the full contents of the cart were dumped into the roaring flames. We listened to her story and we said that we understood and that we felt that her action was completely justified. It was clear to us she prevented countless more deaths. She put an end to this monster's fatally flawed experience. I don't think there was any other course of action. My friend and I could feel her relief. She actually smiled a little bit. We opened the portal, as we do in our shamanic training, and explained to her that all she needed to do was to start to walk into the light, let go, and just float up. She saw the light, walked toward it, paused, looked at us, and with tears in her eyes, she thanked us and continued into the light. As the light surrounded her, she began to lose her form. She floated up, and she was gone. As a shaman, I've learned that spirits don't haunt places. They haunt the stories left unfinished. This night, one story found its ending. But as we drove away from the asylum, I couldn't help but think about the other souls still lingering there, those who suffered, those who were misunderstood, those who, like this assistant, carried burdens even beyond death. Most people think of hauntings as echoes, trapped souls replaying the past, waiting to be discovered. But that's not what we experienced at Ararat. What we felt was something deeper. A place heavy with the weight of unfinished stories. One spirit found peace that night, but I knew we had only scratched the surface. This place wasn't just home to the host of lost and broken spirits. It was a world of impossible choices. The ones society discarded, the ones whose lives were stolen in the name of science, the ones who had nowhere else to go. And then there were the ones like her, the ones who stood at the edge of morality and made decisions no one should ever have to make. She ended a life to save lives, and in doing so, she trapped herself in the moment of that choice, too afraid to leave, too burdened to move on. I come to places like this because spirits find me, and sometimes they need help to move on. But not all of them are ready. And not all of them are willing to be saved. Some are waiting to be remembered. Ararat is silent now. The gates are locked, the rooms are empty. But as my friend and I stood there, we could still feel them watching. Not with fear, not with anger, but with a question that every haunted place seems to ask. Who will tell our story? Who will make sure we are not forgotten? And maybe that's the real reason I was called here. Because history doesn't just live in the past. It lingers. And if you stop, if you really listen, maybe you'll hear it. If you want to take a deeper dive, go to my website, where you can download a free ebook with powerful lessons, deep contemplations, and a shamanic ritual for you to perform. My website is eagleheart.com.au. If you want to experience more ancient wisdom and sound healing, follow, subscribe, and be sure and click the notification bell so you can join me for more shamanic adventures. If you liked this story, check out Trapped Spirits, Guiding Ghosts to the Light with Archangel Michael, and also Soul Singers of Portugal, Sacred Ceremonies for Our Loved Ones, both in Season 1.